After what we've been through in the real estate market over this past decade, we are all wondering what normal is anymore when it comes to housing. I know I'm not the only one who feels in my core that this housing crisis is anything but normal or healthy. Not for our economy, not for society, and certainly not for the growing number of families who are having to choose rent over food. Housing is a fundamental human need, and it's essential to building complete and healthy communities. When I was 9 years old, we lived in a home surrounded by cornfields, isolated. And then we moved to the town next door. And for the first time, I got to experience living in a community where you can live and work and play, and the impact that that has on our happiness and well-being. In that moment, my passion to become a city builder was born. I wanted to create healthy, complete communities for everyone, everywhere. And so after decades of delivering housing in private sector development and in government, this passion led me to create a company focused on building healthy, complete communities with inclusion and equity at its core so that everyone can thrive. This company, Purpose-Driven Development, creates real solutions to the affordable housing crisis in our cities. It's where decades of private sector expertise is partnered with nonprofits and cities and First Nations to unlock their land to create affordable housing for people of all income levels and all stages of life within a complete community. Its focus is on keeping the land owned by those groups in their ownership instead of being sold to private sector so that it can stay affordable housing. Housing affordability is defined when a family spends 30% or less of their income on housing. But today, Canadian families with an average income are spending 50% of their income on housing. Despite this, Canada has been under a UN international covenant for 50 years that establishes housing as a human right. But instead of being treated as a human right, housing is treated as a commodity, sold for maximum profit to the highest bidders, and far too often it is detached from our local incomes. This housing crisis is national, but here in BC, it's most concerning. Over the past decade, the cost of home ownership has increased 110%. Rents have increased 50%. And within 3 years in Metro Vancouver, homelessness has increased 30%. Staggering numbers over a far too short period of time. And here's how this housing crisis impacts you and me and why we need to be concerned. You know those people that we rely on in an emergency? The firefighters, the paramedics, the 911 operators. The minimum income required to own a home in Vancouver is 3 times their salaries. And so they're commuting, often long distances and far too many hours because they can't afford to live where they work. And how about teachers or nurses? They're not up for the time and the cost of the commute. They're just leaving, causing major labor shortages. Recent headlines read, "Exodus of educators due to impossible housing market." These same alarm bells are being sounded not just by the teachers, but by the BC Nurses Union. Temporary hospital closures, permanent business closures, and students sleeping in their cars. This is how the housing crisis impacts you and me. Why I started this company and work hard at this every day is because I remember having a secure income, working for a very successful development company, and then one day I became a single mom. One income, 2 kids, living in one of the world's most unaffordable cities. It was terrifying. And I knew if this was terrifying for me, what about those who don't have access to the education and the career that I have had access to? Terrifying. I still think about this every day, and it's what drives me to look for solutions, nationally and globally. Take Finland, the first country to eradicate homelessness by providing homes for everyone, a solution that costs their economy less every year. Or Vienna, Austria, providing as much affordable housing as they are market housing and lowering the overall cost of housing for everyone. When we focus on housing as a human right and not as a commodity, everybody wins. And here's the great news. In 2017, after decades of letting housing be a market-driven commodity, Canada adopted the largest national housing strategy in Canadian history. Right. And here, the BC government is leading the way in investments in building affordable housing. These programs and investments build capacity for nonprofits and cities and First Nations to build affordable housing on the land that they own. Here's what this looks like. We are building a project with a nonprofit organization that provides 135 affordable homes for seniors and single-parent families and workforce housing. Think those teachers, the firefighters, the artists. This project has spaces for social connection woven throughout the building, a large rooftop terrace with sweeping views for birthday parties or yoga classes, a lobby designed as a welcoming living room where you can lounge on a big comfy sofa and chat with your neighbors, or just not be alone when you need to feel connected. This project is in the heart of Vancouver. It's on transit, and it's walking distance to all of your daily needs. It's inclusive housing for everyone within a complete community, and it makes my 9-year-old heart sing with joy. There are many opportunities to build more projects like this with groups who own land in our cities. Think of all the underutilized sites in your community, aging buildings owned by churches and nonprofits, parking lots, libraries, schools, and community centers, all publicly owned with our tax dollars. Now imagine if a project like this can be built on those sites. Affordable housing for those in your community who we know are struggling. That paramedic commuting, the nurse ready to leave, new affordable housing with a brand new church right below. Now imagine this was possible and these groups could stay owning the land and the housing affordable forever. This reality is entirely possible, and it requires just one thing: more long-term funding and financing by all levels of government and the financial sector now. Without these programs and investments, These sites typically get sold to private sector and they get built as market condos. This is what's been happening for the past many decades, and we need that to stop. So here is where you become part of this affordable housing solution. First, ensure our governments are expanding their investments in building affordable housing, and vote for politicians who are committed to this. Second, ask your financial institution if they have investments dedicated to building affordable housing. Find those investments and put your money there. Finally, participate in any council meetings for affordable housing projects being built in your community. Building complete and healthy communities with housing for everyone, everywhere, is a vision that starts with all of us. My 9-year-old self, she still holds that vision clearly. Thank you.